Former AEW commentator and Ring of Honor stars Kevin Kelly, Brandon Tate, and Brent Tate file a lawsuit against All Elite Wrestling, the president of the company, Tony Khan, Ring of Honor, as well as Ring of Honor broadcaster Ian RICCABONI. All of the details in that, plus Julia challenges Roxanne Perez to an NXT Women's Championship on the premiere of NXT on the CW network. TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordynne Grace will be holding an open challenge next week on NXT with her TNA Knockouts World Championship on the line. The Rascals, featuring TNA stars Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel, will challenge for the NXT Tag Team Championships next week. Odyssey Jones reportedly has been fired from WWE after allegations surfaced against him. Trick Williams and Pete Dunne will face off in a last man standing match next week to determine who's going to be the number one contender for the NXT Championship when NXT premieres on the CW network. Kazuchika Okada will defend his AEW Continental Championship tonight live on AEW Dynamite. Plus, Nikki Garcia reportedly is contacting divorce lawyers following the arrest of her husband, and Don Callis will be partnering Mauro Ranallo in the commentary booth for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's begin with big news today when it comes to legal matters for All Elite Wrestling, Tony Khan, Ring of Honor, as well as an ROH broadcaster, because a lawsuit has been filed against All Elite Wrestling. Former AEW Collision broadcaster Kevin Kelly and former Ring of Honor and AEW stars The Boys, also known as Brendan and Brandon Tate, have filed a lawsuit against the company. Kelly alleges defamation from Ian RICCABONI and AEW, stemming from RICCABONI making comments on a Discord channel regarding Kelly being involved with QAnon conspiracies. He is seeking monetary damages, claiming AEW breached his contract and that the situation has made it difficult for him to find work elsewhere. Kelly was fired from AEW in March of this year. The Tate twins were fired in April. AEW President Tony Khan stated publicly that the releases were due to no-showing events, which the brothers later attributed to a miscommunication between them and management after they were booked to fly out of a different airport than they usually use. The claim they no-showed events is at the center of their defamation suit against Khan and AEW. Kelly and the Tate twins are also requesting the court certify a class action suit against AEW over the company misclassifying its talent as independent contractors rather than employees. Quote, "I applaud the bravery of these plaintiffs in bringing this long overdue action challenging the misclassification of pro wrestlers as independent contractors instead of employees. We know we are in for a long, hard fight, but in the end, I believe justice always prevails," said attorney Stephen P. New. The Wrestling News AV was first to report the news, saying, quote, "Breaking. 3 former talents terminated by the company have brought a lawsuit against All Elite Wrestling, among others. The suit brought by announcer Kevin Kelly and wrestlers Brandon and Brendan Tate was filed on August 30th in Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania Court of Common Pleas by attorneys Stephen P. New and Benjamin Bear, and is seeking to void the arbitration clause of their talent contracts, as well as requesting the court to certify a class action suit against AEW over claims the company is misclassifying its wrestling talent as independent contractors rather than employees. In April, it was reported that the Tate brothers, known professionally as The Boys, were released from their Ring of Honor contracts due to budget cuts. Ring of Honor owner Tony Khan claimed during media events that their release was due to no-showing several events, a claim the brothers deny. That claim is now at the center of the defamation allegation against Khan by the Tate brothers. Kelly, who joined AEW in June 2023 after working as the English-speaking commentator for New Japan, was fired from his position as AEW play-by-play announcer in March after he went public on his social media expressing his frustrations with the company and RICCABONI, end quote. Now, this was also confirmed by WrestleVotes, who posted on social media saying, quote, "As first reported by Wrestling News AV, the Wrestling News, Kevin Kelly and the Tate twins are allegedly suing All Elite Wrestling, Tony Khan, and Ian Riccaboni. The suit is, quote, seeking to void the arbitration clause of their talent contracts, as well as requesting the court certify a class action suit against AEW over claims the company is misclassifying its wrestling talent as independent contractors rather than employees, end quote. Of course, we get any more details on the lawsuit, the outcome, or anything of that nature, of course, we'll let you know. Now, Julia, of course, she made her WWE NXT debut this past weekend at NXT No Mercy, and she has now called her shot. The end of this week's NXT saw Roxanne Perez come to the ring to boast about her victory over Jada Parker at No Mercy. Chelsea Green first interrupted her, saying there was no reason for her not to be the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. That was when Julia came to the ring. She quickly took out Green before focusing on Perez, saying she wanted the title match on the premiere episode of NXT on the CW, which takes place on October 1st. Quote, me, you, CW, she said, before dropping the microphone. The show ended with the champion and challenger staring each other down. After months of speculation, Julia officially made her NXT debut at No Mercy, confronting Roxanne Perez following her title victory. She had been seen in the crowd earlier this year at NXT Stand and Deliver. Recently, she had made several appearances for Marigold, with her final matches taking place last month. Now, it has already been announced that Ethan Page will be defending his title on the CW premiere in Chicago, but his opponent has not yet been named. So we'll let you know more details on that later on. Now, when it comes to Julia, reportedly, there are long-term plans when it comes to the former Stardom star. Fightful Select's Corey Brennan reported prior to the show No Mercy this weekend that a segment was rehearsed that fits with what fans saw with Julia at No Mercy, with a producer and stock music being used as stand-ins for Julia during said rehearsal. This marks a change to how NXT usually prepares for surprise appearances, as Shawn Michaels has routinely stood in for surprise debuts and returns in the past. When asking about her presentation following her debut, Brennan was told that while Gloria was attainable as theme music for Julia, it was never strongly considered, and a new theme was produced specifically for her debut. Fightful have also been told that the excess amount of fog and the lights being turned out were intentional methods to draw out the surprise even longer, with one source pointing to the lack of a Tron until Julia emerged from the fog. There was a lot of secrecy regarding Julia's debut, as one would expect, with sources in NXT not seeing her until moments before the finish of Roxanne Perez versus Jada Parker. Regarding her creative, Brennan has long been told that WWE has big plans for Julia and Roxanne Perez, with a matchup dating all the way back to NXT Stand and Deliver, where Julia was shown in the crowd prior to Perez's title victory over Lyra Valkyria. Now, Fightful say they've not heard for sure if Roxanne Perez was kept in the dark regarding Julia's appearance, as she has in the past, but one source noted they wouldn't be surprised if Perez was kept out of the loop once again. When asking if anyone else was considered for the mystery spot, Brennan was met with a firm no, with plans to debut the likes of Delta and Stephanie Vacqua coming at later dates. Julia's hard date for beginning with NXT was said to be No Mercy, allowing her to finish off her Marigold dates, including her final date that was added in order for her to compete in a gauntlet match against anyone who wanted to wrestle her before she left. From those that Fightful spoke to within NXT, there was no heat on her for extending her time with Marigold, as it was known as a possibility even prior to her fracturing her wrist. As one would expect, her peers in Japan were all said to be legitimately happy to see her on the big stage in the US when it was asked. In terms of reactions within NXT, several talents that Fightful spoke with were excited to see the additional star power brought to the brand, and specifically the women's division. Now, sources in NXT have told Brennan, as it was actually later found out last night, Julia vs. Perez was set for the Chicago CW debut, and it would not be surprising to see Julia wrestle on NXT prior to this matchup. There is also reportedly little concern with Julia changing up her style now that she is in NXT, with concerns of her being too stiff waved off by several sources back when she signed in April. While asking about how long Julia is expected to stay in NXT, Brennan was told that Julia had signed a long-term deal with the company, that her tenure in the brand will be relative to how far she takes to the American television style. As one would expect, there is a lot of excitement regarding Julia and her future in WWE, so we'll have to wait and see, of course, how that does play out. Now, speaking of women's divisions and NXT, we're going to see the TNA Knockouts division represented next week on NXT. Beginning next week, all three of WWE's television shows, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, will reside on the USA Network for the remainder of September. As such, the USA Network has labeled the most imminent 7-day span as WWE Week. In celebration of next week's festivities, NXT's TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordynne Grace has laid out an extra special opportunity set to take place on the September 10th episode of NXT. Quote, "Next week is a big week for wrestling," Grace said in a video posted to X. "It's WWE Week on the USA Network, which means that NXT, Raw, and SmackDown will all air on USA. But I have something that's going to make it even a better week. I have something that's going to make it a historic week. I spoke to Ava, the NXT general manager, and it's official. For the first time ever, I'll be defending my TNA Knockouts World Championship in an open challenge on NXT. I want to continue testing myself against the best, so if there is a woman who thinks she can fill my shoes, I'm happy, more than happy to give her a shot. See you soon, WWE Universe." Now, through the collaborative efforts of WWE and TNA Wrestling, Grace made her surprise NXT debut in the lead-up to NXT Battleground, where she was positioned as a challenger to NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez. Now, despite losing to Perez at the respective Premium Live event, she did pick up a victory over Stevie Turner on the preceding episode of NXT. Additionally, Grace defeated a pair of NXT talents, namely Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dame, in back-to-back title defenses on TNA Wrestling programming. Now she will return to the NXT brand, faced with a locker room full of hungry potential new opponents. Now, speaking of TNA influence, next week on NXT, we're going to see the Rascals once again on NXT television, just like they were last night. Former TNA Wrestling Tag Team Champions, the Rascals, that being Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel, will challenge Nathan Frazer and Axiom for the NXT Tag Team Championships next week on NXT. Wentz and Miguel teamed together on Tuesday's episode of the show to defeat Mark Coffey and Wolfgang of Callis and Hank Walker and Tank Ledger in a number one contenders bout in the first match of the show. All three teams decided to shoot their shot at a title opportunity during No Mercy on Sunday after Frazer and Axiom recaptured the championship from Chase U's Andre Chase and now former member Ridge Holland. Wentz, the TNA X Division champion, was also in action at No Mercy, defeating former best friend and former Rascal stablemate Wes Lee. All three teams put in good offensive efforts throughout the match before multiple instances of interferences at the end. Joe Coffey jumped on the ring apron following Miguel hitting a double neck breaker on Mark Coffey and Ledger, but Javon Evans attacked the Gallus member on the outside. Carl Anson and Luke Gallows, the OC, appeared to distract Ledger and Walker. Miguel was able to hit a Meteora to Ledger from the top rope, and the X Division champion hit a Swanton Bomb for the victory and a chance to challenge Fraxium next week. Now, finally, more details when it comes to Odyssey Jones and what's really been going on with him and why possibly he's been fired from WWE. Odyssey Jones has been absent from the last several tapings of Raw, with a flurry of discussion emerging around his status in the last few days. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful had posted an update on social media regarding the situation, alleging that Jones was taken off television after the company learned about domestic violence claims against the wrestler. There doesn't appear to be any charges filed against Palmer right now, that being the real name of Odyssey Jones, and Sapp noted that talent had not been informed on the situation. Now, Odyssey Jones had begun making regular appearances on Raw last month, joining forces with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods of The New Day. The trio defeated the Final Testament on the August 19th episode of Raw, which marks Odyssey Jones' last in-ring appearance with the company as of now. WWE signed him in 2019, with his first televised match taking place 2 years later on an episode of 205 Live. He then spent the next several years in WWE NXT's developmental system before getting caught up in the WWE draft earlier this year and eventually winning his Raw debut last month. Now, yesterday, Fightful Select posted a brief report on his status before Sapp's more recent update. The wrestler was reportedly removed from the company's creative plans for the foreseeable future, despite being in the middle of a storyline with prominent performers, including former WWE champion in Kofi Kingston. Additionally, a report from PW Insider backed up the claim that there are no longer creative plans for him. However, he is still currently listed on the company's internal roster, leaving some wiggle room as to his current status. Brian Alvarez reported on Wrestling Observer Live that Odyssey Jones had indeed been released by WWE, though it's yet to be confirmed. Quote, "There has not been a press release or anything like that, but I've been told that Odyssey Jones is fired. There are rumors online, also from Fightful, that it was a domestic violence allegation. Apparently no arrest at this point, but I was told fired." Of course, if we get any confirmation on that, we'll let you know in an upcoming video. Now, Trick Williams and Pete Dunne, one of them are going to be the number one contender for the NXT Championship. The feud between Pete Dunne and Trick Williams continued on last night's episode of NXT, with the rivals bringing out all the stops in an attempt to take down the other. Unfortunately, the intensity between Dunne and Williams proved to be too much, as a simultaneous crash through the announce table resulted in a double countout. As such, NXT General Manager Ava has now raised the stakes for their next encounter, specifically finale to a last man standing match. Quote, "These two certainly haven't made it easy," Ava said on NXT, "and I know the ref was just doing his job, but I think I speak for everyone when I say there needs to be a winner. So I did some thinking and I decided next week, last man standing match, and whoever wins will move on to face Ethan Page for the NXT Championship on October 1st when NXT debuts on the CW." As Ava mentioned, the NXT brand will soon shift away from the USA Network and onto the CW Network beginning Tuesday, October 1st. This particular episode will emanate from the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois, with a special appearance from Chicago native and former WWE champion CM Punk. Elsewhere, Page will now either defend his NXT Championship against Williams or Dunn, the former of whom lost the title to Page at NXT Heatwave, albeit under fatal four-way conditions. So that match is set for next week. Now, of course, tonight it's AEW Dynamite live on TBS, and a big title match has been confirmed for the show. There's no rest for the Wicked in All Elite Wrestling, as the dust has barely settled from the events of All in London, and yet the company are just days away from their 6th annual AEW All Out pay-per-view, which takes place on September 7th in Chicago. Plans for what AEW Continental Champion Kazuchika Okada have remained a mystery for what he would be doing at the event, but what he will be doing for the final episode of Dynamite before the pay-per-view have now been confirmed. AEW President Tony Khan recently announced that Okada will be defending his AEW Continental Championship this Wednesday on Dynamite against the Don Callis family's Kyle Fletcher. Khan noted that Fletcher earned the match following his hard-hitting victory over Tomohiro Ishii on the August 31st episode of AEW Collision, which itself was a bounce back for Fletcher after losing to Ricochet on the August 28th episode of Dynamite. For Okada, the bout will be his 4th defense of the title since he defeated Eddie Kingston for it in March, making him the longest reigning champion in the bout's short history. He has already defeated both Pac and Dax Harwood and went the distance with Claudio Castagnoli on the August 21st episode of Dynamite, the first Dynamite to take place out of North America, which took place in Cardiff, Wales. Now, a bit more of an update when it comes to the situation regarding former WWE star Nikki Garcia, also WWE Hall of Famer, also known as Nikki Bella, and it looks like Nikki Garcia looks to be headed for divorce. According to TMZ, Nikki Garcia, as I mentioned, formerly known as Nikki Bella, is planning to file for divorce to end her marriage to Artem Chigbenstev, as she has been contacting divorce lawyers since Friday. This comes after Artem Chigbenstev was arrested on Thursday, August 29th, on felony charges of corporal injury to a spouse or cohabitant after police officers responded to a domestic violence incident at a home in Yountville, California. The injury must be visible for the officers to make the arrest for a felony. Nikki Garcia has not been wearing her wedding ring since the incident, including earlier this week when she hosted the hot dog eating contest between Joey Chestnut and Takehiro Kobayashi that aired on Netflix. TMZ noted that Chigbenstev has been staying at a friend's house since his arrest, while Garcia has stayed at the family home with their 4-year-old son, Mateo. Nikki Garcia and Artem Chigbenstev had begun dating in 2019, and they were married in 2022. They initially met after being paired together during Dancing with the Stars in the 2017 season. And finally, Don Callis is the latest name to be announced for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Mauro Ranallo's partner at the commentary table for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling will be Don Callis, the promotion announced today. Callis will serve as the color commentator, while Mauro Ranallo will be on play-by-play. Of course, Don Callis and Scott D'Amore previously worked together for several years, running TNA, then Impact Wrestling, as the promotion's EVPs. Their partnership came to an end when Callis left Impact in 2021 and became a full-time member of All Elite Wrestling. Scott D'Amore was previously the president of TNA, but he was fired by Anthem, TNA's parent company, earlier this year. He has since revived Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, and the promotion will hold 2 Forged in Excellent events at St. Clair College in Windsor, Ontario, Canada on October 19th and October 20th. The shows will air on Triller TV and feature the likes of Raj Desi, also known as Jinder Mahal, Konosuke Takeshita, El Phantasmo, Josh Alexander, Giselle Shaw, Kushida, Alex Zane, Kevin Knight, Jake Something, Trevor Lee, and Kylie Ray. But there you go, guys. The latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.